So this is a video response to SummerStitchinWitch, and I'm sorry it's so late because I just saw your video today. But it's about deities and how you work with multiple and how you deal with that. And I thought it was a really interesting video because I did struggle with this a little bit too in the beginning of my path. And in the beginning of my path, Isis was always present and always there and always came up. Either her name came up in, you know, like the name of a company or just something random. It was always there. Now, I love Egypt. I love Egypt, and it's a dream of mine to go there one day, but I am Irish, and I really wanted to connect with my Irish roots, and I wanted a Irish god or goddess. Well, it didn't really work out that way. Isis is a force of nature, and she's been my goddess for over 20 years. Now, I have always wanted to experiment with other gods and goddesses to kind of see what my relationship would be with them and what I can learn from them. But it was really difficult for me because when I had an altar and I would remove Isis or a representation of Isis to put on a different goddess, it always felt so much like betrayal, which I know might sound to some really ridiculous, but it's what I felt because I felt very connected to her. So what I did one day is I didn't have a whole lot of room. I didn't have room like now where I have an entire room devoted, you know, pretty much primarily to my spiritual path. I had a bookshelf. I had a little tiny altar that I used as my ritual altar, and I had Isis on there, but I also had a bookshelf that had books and things on it. So at the end of the book, or it started as the end of a bunch of books, but it became its own shelf. I had an altar or more of a shrine, but I guess it was an altar to Isis specifically. I didn't want to move her around. I didn't want to move her off and on and off and on. And I ended up using the smaller altar I had for rituals and spells, and I did have different gods and goddesses representations on there. That felt so much better to me, to have a space devoted specifically to Isis and another space devoted to where I could, you know, it could be more of a transient altar where I have multiple gods and representations and different things going on there. So having a separate space where you're kind of holding, you kind of have Isis, well for me, Isis kind of has her spot, well she has her spot, and she holds a place there all the time. So I don't feel disconnected from her. When I have my other altar where I might have Aphrodite, I might have Hecate, I may have Hera, I may have, you know, Bridget, who knows? I mean, it just really depends, but they never come between Isis and I as far as, you know, removing her from the altar. She's always there. Well, she's there now, but she's always there, and she never moves. So she ever holds a presence in my magic and in my path. And my other altar is where I can reach out to other gods and goddesses and, you know, embrace their teachings, and then when that teaching is done, or that ritual is done, or that spell is done, then I can, you know, move on from there to the next level of my learning. So for me, having a separate space for Isis, and I know your goddess is best, and having a separate space for Isis was really, really fundamental for me. It really changed how I viewed working with different gods and goddesses. And so that's what worked for me. I know a lot of people don't have a lot of space and they may not be able to have multiple altars, but an altar really can be very little, honestly. I have a small shelf in my bathroom, and it has a Kuan Yin, and she is in this beautiful bowl, and it's filled with sand and shells and different crystals and things like that remind me of her. And that is my altar to Kuan Yin. And since I associate Kuan Yin with emotions and emotions with water, that's why she's in the bathroom. That's what worked for me. And maybe it would work for somebody else. Maybe it'll work for you. If it doesn't, it's totally cool. I just thought I would put it out there. And I wanted to say that your videos are really great, and you have the sweetest spirit. I just really enjoy you. You have such a healing to you, and I think that's really, 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 really wonderful. So thank you so much for your video. Thank you so much for watching, and I guess that's it. Blessed be. Bye.